In this video, I'm going to discuss whether going to the cinema will become a thing of the past. Hey, it's me, AP, aka Mr. Movie Cheer, and welcome back to another video. So, will going to the cinema, or the movie theatre if you're in Canada and America and the United States, become a thing of the past? That is the topic of today's video. I thought, let's do a deep dive discussion into this because I like doing these deep dives. I like doing these deep dives into topics, and I think, this is a channel about watching movies at home, watching movies at the cinema, wherever you may watch them. And I thought, let's discuss cinemas, because I think cinemas over the past couple of years have had a bit of a rocky time at times, and they kind of brought themselves back for a bit, but will they become a thing of the past in the future? That's what I want to get to today. That's what I'm going to discuss, and that's what I'm going to do a deep dive discussion into. So let's get to the deep dive. So I want to start this discussion off with who is going to the cinemas right now? Who is the audience of the cinema? Who goes to the cinema right now? I think, what are the viewing habits of people? I think, in general, the mainstream audience, I think cinemas now, I go there sometimes and the cinemas are empty. I think the only time I see cinemas busy is when it is a blockbuster movie, like a big Marvel movie. I think, like, for instance, the last Spider-Man movie was relatively busy, but not like a full house. I feel like, for me, a lot of them, the mainstream audience is only going to the cinema to see the big blockbuster movies. There's that audience, and I think there's an audience of like families on holidays. I think, like, when it's like school holidays for kids, I think there's going to be families going to take the kids to just keep them from getting bored. Let's take them to the cinema, take them for a day out. Let's go to the cinema. Let's go and see a movie. I think there's that audience as well. I think they are the main like obviously watching audiences for the cinema now. And I think even like families now, probably less and less with streaming. I think that's probably a dwindling audience too, because I think streaming now, with like the likes of Disney Plus and movies going exclusively to Disney Plus, or even with like shorter release windows at the cinema, I feel like that audience is even shrinking, the family audience. So for me, I think the main one is the blockbuster audience. I think for the big movies, that's what cinema craves. Look, you're not going to get like a movie like The Northman. I can't imagine that, as you know, that's been a successful movie for, it's got a fan base, but at the cinemas, did it do well? I'm not too sure. I can't imagine that type of movie would have a massive audience. Whereas if it was a Marvel movie, there's going to be a lot more people. There's going to be, obviously, it's a movie that's made for all ages, so anyone can go and see it. And it's a movie that has got a big following. The big MCU movies are always going to get people in. They get me in. That's I feel like is the main people going to the cinemas, the main audience at this moment in time. So now I want to move it to my own personal habits of going to the cinema. How do I feel about going to the cinema right now at this moment in time? I've kind of like changed over the past. I feel like this year in 2022, I've definitely went to cinema a few more times, and even like a few movies that are not like mainstream big blockbuster movies. Like I've seen like the movie Dog this earlier on this year, which was not like a big blockbuster movie. But I've been and seen a few other different movies throughout the year. I feel like in general though, my habits are like the mainstream audience of cinema goers. I feel like for me, the only really big movies that get me out are the Marvel movies, and even some of them now I'm kind of like, could I wait for like a Disney Plus viewing? Some of them I like Love and Thunder. I recently missed that. I couldn't go because I wasn't feeling great for a few weeks. I missed it, and I've seen a few spoilers online, but it didn't really like annoy me enough to be like, this has ruined the movie for me. And now I'll happily wait for Disney Plus to come around, a release on there, and I'll watch it on there. So yeah, for me, I think in general, my viewing pattern for the cinema is like, wait for a big blockbuster, a big Marvel, a big DC movie. But I do feel like there's only certain movies that make the cinema experience special to me now. I feel like, I was thinking about this. What were the last couple of movies that really stood out as significant, where I felt like the cinema was special? And I go to my local cinema. It's not a big cinema. It's a very small screen. Not like an IMAX or anything like that. It's a very small cinema, local cinema. So you don't get all your bells and whistles. But it's you want to see a big movie, it's cool. It's cool. I still like that experience. And the last ones I remember really enjoying was the Star Wars The Force Awakens. That was one where it felt like an experience, because for me it was built up. It was the first time I pre-ordered a ticket like months in advance. I was just so excited, so pumped up to see that movie. And it was special, and I've seen it a couple of times afterwards at the cinema because I really enjoyed it. And that was a special experience for me, and I still to this day remember the excitement of going to the cinema that day and seeing Star Wars. It was so much fun. And I think definitely the last Spider-Man movie kind of got a bit of that, but not to that degree. I think the last one then would have been Endgame as well. Avengers Endgame was such a special movie because the anticipation to find out what was happening with the Avengers. It was so exciting to see the conclusion of the Infinity War saga. That was another movie where I was super excited to see, and that was again where I could really feel like an excitement in the cinema watching it, and it was exciting, and that was a special moment. But I feel like in general, I don't really get them special moments of watching movies at the cinema anymore. I think it's partly down to I think I like watching movies at home. I do like watching movies at home. I like watching movies within the comfort of my own home. I don't like people on the mobile phones that like watching the endless trailers. I mean, trailers used to be exciting as a kid. Years ago, they used to be exciting watching movie trailers at the cinema because you wouldn't see them anywhere else. But now every movie trailer you see, you've seen it on YouTube about 2 months earlier. So it's kind of like taking away that another special part of the cinema where you were seeing the new movie trailers. So that's another part where it kind of like diminished for me. But yeah, I feel like for me now, it's only the blockbuster movies that I'm really going to go for. There may be the odd movie I go and watch at the cinema, but in general, it's the blockbusters. And the cinema trips, I would say, are getting smaller and smaller. I even said to myself the other day, if cinemas don't exist anymore, would I miss it? And I'm like, I honestly don't think I'd be like heartbroken. I really don't think I would be. I think during the pandemic, I felt like that more. I was like, when they were releasing movies straight to home release, I was like, this is amazing. This is superb. Why don't they do this more often? And it's cool that now they've like shortened that window for a lot of movie releases, which is good. But yeah, it's for me, the cinema trip was a lot more special growing up as a kid, when it felt like it was more of an experience, and like I said, the trailers, all of it was an experience all in one. And now it kind of feels like it's just like I'm watching a movie on a bigger screen. That's all it feels like now, and it doesn't feel as special to me. That's my my personal feelings on going to cinema at this moment in time. So the future of cinema viewing, what do I see as the future of cinema viewing? I feel like over the next, let's look at 5 to 10 years. I think that's always a good goal to kind of look at. Next 5 to 10 years, cinemas. I feel like cinema viewing, I think even like the Marvel films sometimes really are, the crowds are definitely dwindling, and I feel like there's lower numbers. And I hear about like local cinemas being funded more, but then you hear about more local cinemas shutting down because of, they're not making the money. And that seems like a common thread at this moment in time, especially over the past couple of years with what's going on in the world. I feel like over the next 5 to 10 years, you're going to see a lot of the small cinema chains shutting down. And I think there's going to be more of a focus on luxury cinemas. And what I mean by that is like your IMAX screens. Your screens that offer like your seats, your recliner seats and all this, and all your other luxury sort of like viewing items. I've never been to a cinema where I've had a reclining seat. I would not pay. I'm a tightwad. I would not pay like 20 quid or whatever it is for a cinema with a fancy church. Just not me. It's not my spending habits. But I know people do enjoy that. Some people. I can see it in like the next 5 to 10 years. They probably have jacuzzis or something like in the cinema where you go and you watch a movie and you're sitting in a jacuzzi. That could be a thing. Yeah. Don't steal my idea anymore. Or if you do, I want some compensation. But yeah, I think it is going to become more luxury, and I think it's going to go towards that market of like the big cities are having the cinemas. Here in the UK, your Londons, your Liverpools, your Manchesters, Newcastles. I think them sort of places are going to have big cinemas, and I think local small towns are the local cinemas will kind of like fade away more. So I just, that's the way I see it. I think there's going to be more of a luxury, and I think it's partly down to like streaming, to cheaper TVs, and I think just in general the interest of cinema going now is, like I said, I think partly down to streaming, partly down to bigger TVs, but I don't know, there's something about maybe watching movies is just like people are willing to wait more and they're not as excited over movies. Maybe it's just like a culture change in general. Like maybe it's like with people saying like comic book movies are like oversaturated, there's too many movies now. Maybe that's like a general audience mentality change where people are getting sick of seeing a certain movie at the cinema and they're just kind of like bored of the cinema in general, and they feel like there's not an experience there anymore. And it's kind of getting to what I was saying, where the last cinema experience was like Force Awakens and Endgame, and there's very little great cinema experiences and memorable experiences for me. So maybe that is a common thread with a lot of cinema goers, where they feel like it's just not as special anymore, and it's maybe it's too much money. Maybe that's another one, pricing, especially in the IMAX cinemas. They're quite expensive. My local cinema is pretty cheap, I'll be honest. You can get a ticket for maybe like £5, and that's pretty decent in comparison to some of the bigger chains. But I think everyone has their own views on this and their own different, ways of how they like to watch movies, whether it's at the cinema or at home. So I just want to do a bit of a final conclusion on this topic of, will going to the cinema become a thing of the past? I honestly do think cinemas will be here in 10 years' time. I can't see them going away. But I do think, like I said, I think it's going to be these big IMAX screens. I think you're going to be paying through the nose to see a movie. And I think it will become a thing where people maybe go and see a movie maybe like once a year or twice a year maybe. I think it's going to be very limited viewing for a lot of people due to price, and just people prefer watching movies in the comfort of their own home. So I do think it's going to be a case where cinemas are still out there to some extent, but I don't think it's going to be, you're going to have tons of cinemas around. I don't think the local cinemas, I feel like the smaller chains are going to suffer over the next 5 to 10 years. And I think the bigger chains are going to probably, reap the benefits of all them local cinemas maybe fading away. But, I hope, it'd be a shame if that was the case, because I like having a cinema in my own hometown. It's nice to go a cinema, a local cinema, and it's always good to know that you've got that chance to watch a new movie at the cinema. But yeah, I do feel like everyone's habits have changed, and especially I think over the past 2 years, the pandemic, I think that has been a big part of it. And in 2022 right now, I think we've had a bit of a surge, a positive surge of the cinema again. But I feel like it's got its peak, isn't it? It's got its peaking moment, and then I feel like it is gonna drop. It's like we need movies, like big time movies, constantly, special movies though, that are really exciting people. And you've got these big Avengers movies coming out. Maybe these are the movies that excite people even more. But I don't know. I feel like there's definitely a trend here where movies are just not as a special thing to watch at the cinema anymore. And I think people are willing to wait. I think it's not that movies are not special. I think it's just people are not as excited to go and watch them straight away, immediately. I think it's that immediately sort of mindset. Going to watch something immediately is not there anymore as much, or it's dwindling. That's the way it is with me, and maybe you feel different, but I feel like that's why cinema going is not as popular, and maybe people don't go, and that's why cinemas are empty all the time. And that's my own view. Obviously, I respect everyone's view on this topic, but yeah, the future of cinemas are still going to be around in 10 years' time, but yeah, it is going to be a luxury cinemas for me. If you enjoyed this video today, please check out the rest of the movie-related content on the channel and let me know your thoughts on this topic today. Will going to the cinema become a thing of the past? Let me know what you think of this. Do you think cinema going in the next 5 to 10 years will become more limited? Do you reckon you'll be going in 5 to 10 years? Do you prefer watching movies at home? Let me know all your thoughts. Let me know what you think of this moment in time as well. Are you going to the cinema right now, or what do you think of it? Let me know all your thoughts. Like I said, I respect everyone's view on this. Everyone's going to have a different opinion, and like I said, I appreciate everyone's opinion, and I respect everyone's opinion on this topic of going to the cinema. Thank you very much. I just want to say as well, thank you very much, ladies and gents, for watching this video today. Remember to spread a bit of movie cheer, and as always, I will see you next time.